Good evening on the West Coast. You're looking at Falcon 9 standing ready for liftoff from Vandenberg Space Force Base's Space Launch Complex 4 East at 11:38 p.m. Pacific Time. You're watching the webcast for EROS-C3 on behalf of our customer ImageSat International, or ISI, an Israeli-based company specializing in collecting, analyzing, and creating space-based intelligence. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a production engineering manager here at SpaceX. The EROS-C3 mission marks SpaceX's 61st launch of 2022 and our last as we head into the new year. Today's payload is part of the EROS new generation 7-satellite constellation, one of the world's top intelligence gathering assets in space. Now, to date, 3 of the 7 satellites are fully operational, and EROS-C3 will be the 4th to orbit. Now, we'll learn more about its capabilities a bit later in the webcast. Now, at T-minus 8 minutes, the range is green. Weather is 30% chance of violation. The vehicle and payload are healthy. Now, the next major milestone that you're about to see on your screen involves the transporter erector, or the TE. That's that trusted structure to the right of Falcon 9. In preparation for TE retraction, the transporter erector clamps will begin to open, and you can see that they have fully opened there on your screen. They're just below the fairing, and the TE is now reclining away from the vehicle. Now, the transporter erector routes the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry umbilicals from the ground systems to the rocket and satellites until Falcon 9 goes on internal power and clears the pad. So far, we are at T-minus 3.5 minutes and counting, and all systems are go for an on-time liftoff. The range is green. We were keeping an eye on weather, but it is just 30% chance of violation, and the vehicle and payload continue to be healthy. Now, if for some reason we are not able to launch today, we do have a backup opportunity, which is available tomorrow, Friday, December 30th, with a 56-minute window. 56-minute window opening at 11:37 p.m. Pacific time. And we did hear that call out that LOX loading is complete on the first stage. Liquid oxygen loading will complete on the second stage at the T-minus 2 minute mark.
Stage 2, LOX load complete.
And great news, there's that confirmation that liquid oxygen loading is now complete on the second stage. Again, that concludes prop loading for Falcon 9, so it is now filled with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Now, coming up next will be Falcon 9 in startup, and that is where the internal flight computers take over the launch countdown, and the stages also begin to pressurize for launch. That's coming up here in just a few seconds.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And there's that call out. Falcon 9 is now in startup. We are now just waiting for the final call from the launch director.
Launch director, go for launch.
And excellent news, we are go for launch. All systems are go. So let's watch as Falcon 9 carries the EROS-C3 payload into space.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff of Falcon 9 and the EROS-C3 mission.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressure is nominal.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Vandenberg Space Force Base's Space Launch Complex 4 East,
Nominal power and telemetry.
carrying the EROS-C3 payload. Now, during ascent, we do tilt the engines, which is called gimbaling, and that turns the rocket horizontally.
Vehicle supersonic.
And that's what we call a gravity turn. And we are throttling down the engines in preparation for max Q right now.
Max Q.
And there we have now passed through max Q, or the maximum aerodynamic pressure. It's the largest structural load that the vehicle sees on ascent. The rocket typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and get into orbit. So you can keep an eye out on the stage 1 telemetry. We now have 6 events coming up here in quick succession. That'll be MECO, stage separation, stage 1 flip, SES1, or second stage start, engine start 1, the boost back burn startup on first stage, and fairing separation. And those events are coming up here in just less than 30 seconds. Again, that's MECO, or main engine cutoff, stage separation, stage 1 flip. That MVAC engine will start up on the second stage, and then we will have a boost back burn on the first stage, and then shortly followed by a fairing separation on the second stage.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
Stage 1 boost pack startup.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And some great views of all of those events. Again, that was MECO's stage separation, stage 1 flip and boost back burn starting up, SES1 with that MVAC engine on your right-hand screen lighting up, and fairing deploy. Now we are in the boost back burn, and this should be ending shortly here. And as you saw on your left-hand screen,
Stage 1 boost pack shutdown.
and there's the call out that the boost back burn on the first stage has concluded. And now what you're seeing on your screen is a great view of the MVAC engine on the second stage. Now it is T plus 4 minutes into launch, and in order to complete today's land landing, the first stage has 2 more burns left. Next up is the entry burn, and that's where 3 of the Merlin engines will reignite, and this helps to slow the stage down as it re-enters into the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. Now that entry burn...
Vehicles on nominal trajectory.
Great callouts there, both vehicles looking nominal. That entry burn that I mentioned is just about a couple minutes away from now for the first stage. Again, we are scheduled to land on land today, so the first stage is doing 3 burns. That is the boost back burn, entry burn, and then there is a landing burn for that vehicle. And what you are seeing on your screen is the MVAC engine burning very bright there. The MVAC engine is optimized for the vacuum of space and has about 220,000 pounds of thrust. We are just about a minute away from the first stage entry burn. And we are coming up here on that entry burn on the first stage in just a few seconds. Again, that will be 3 of 9 M1D engines reigniting. And there you can see it on your left-hand screen that those engines have ignited.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
This burn is about 20 seconds or so long.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
Stage 1
And
FTS is saved.
as you heard and saw on your left-hand screen, those engines have shut down. That concludes the entry burn for the first stage.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And there we've had the first
Stage 2
stage.
FTS is saved.
First stage landing burn has begun. Let's watch as Falcon 9 touches down for landing.
Landing leg deployed. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Amazing view. Falcon 9 has touched down. This marks our 160th overall successful recovery of an orbital class rocket, including both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy first stage landings. Now we are just about a minute away from SECA 1, or second stage engine cutoff 1. That is where we will shut down this MVAC engine that you're seeing ignited at the moment. We will shut that engine down and allow the vehicle to coast with the payload until it reaches its targeted drop-off orbit.
MVAC shutdown.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And great news, we did watch as the MVAC engine was shutting down and also heard a good call out of confirmation of good orbit. So next up is payload deploy, just before the T+15 minute mark. Now up next, we are awaiting the deployment of the EROS-C3 satellite, which is coming up here in just under 10 seconds from now.
Payload separation confirmed.
And there you can see live on your screen the EROS-C3 payload drifting away from Falcon 9's second stage. Now with that successful deployment, our webcast will come to a close. Thank you to ImageSat International, ISI, for entrusting us with today's mission, SpaceX's 61st and final launch of 2022. As always, thanks for tuning in and have a great new year. We'll see you all in 2023.